We are at a point right now as a collective that we know that it's not one or the other. They're not opposed. You can't be profitable if you're not sustainable in the long term, because your land won't be able to provide for you. And you won't be sustainable. You cannot be like, let's save the planet, if you're not profitable, because you won't be able to eat, basically. So that's a very important conversation that I try to have with producers in general. Like, it's not one or the other. There are two things that exist together: profitability and sustainability. It's an and.
Welcome back to another episode of the Force of Nature podcast. Today's special guest is Magdalena Iturria from Uruguay. She owns a company called Sosei, and she's extremely knowledgeable in the soil health space, and she's one of my good friends from the Create project. In today's episode, we discuss a fair bit about what agriculture is like in Uruguay, the issues that they have around grazing on native grasslands with their predominantly sheep and beef country, and we talk about her experience through the Create program. So without further ado, let's get into it. How are you today, Made?
Fine, Conan. Thank you for having me in the podcast.
No, it's a real pleasure to have you on today. Can you introduce yourself and give a bit of a background to the listeners about who you are?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm Magdalena Iturria. I'm from Uruguay. As you said, I am 44 years old, mother of 3 beautiful boys. I have a background in chemical engineering, actually, and I have in my previous life, like I like to say, I used to work in innovation and developing biomaterials. I used to work in industry, cement, petrol, environmental management, and that's how I learned about the impacts we can have on the environment. And then I started working in bioremediation and wastewater treatment, and that's how I came to find out about the power of microbes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how many years were you working in that space before you found the microbes?
Yeah, well, maybe 10 to 15 years in that industry, and then another probably 10 to 15 years since I've been working in different ways with microbes. Like I said, first more towards like bioremediation stuff in the soil and in the waters, and then finding about the power of soil, of living soil and microbes for basically balancing out ecosystem health in general and for productivity in agriculture. And that's where I said, like, this is where I want to be, basically.
So that gave you the bit of the soil bug, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the flip to agriculture, do you have a background in agriculture, or has it been a new love for you?
I don't really know if it's a new love or an old love, because I've always felt really at ease in nature. And I've always, even since I was a little girl, I used to be out in the farm and in the field. My family had a farm. I went in the holidays. I didn't live there. But I always felt a deep connection to that, and I really loved being out in nature and stuff. So yeah, then life took me down other roads, like I said, in the industry and in the cement, petrol refinery. But always when I was out driving through the fields or whatever, like going somewhere, I always looked out at the country, and I felt a longing or something that was, special to me. So when the soil bug got me, and I decided that I definitely wanted to put my attention there and start working towards that, something clicked inside, It's like, yeah, this is what I really want to do. And all of the other stuff that I had done before, even though it looks as if it has like nothing to do with what I'm doing right now, it actually does. It actually feeds something of what I'm doing. I've learned, for example, from innovation, I've learned how to think about things differently or ask questions and keep an open mind about stuff. Like working in the industry, I've learned a lot about the importance of measuring and systems and protocols and stuff. And that's what I apply now. And I don't know, it sort of feels as if everything is summing up to this moment in some ways.
Absolutely. I feel the same, to be honest, because I was an environmental engineer for 4 or 5 years before coming back to the agricultural industry, and it felt like that set me up to come back to find eventually where I am today. And a lot of those processes and things I learned, and I guess seeing the other side of the industrial contamination and how to clean that up. It just built a basis for me to understand how important the soil was. So very similar, but my knowledge is definitely not as good as yours on that front. And we didn't even delve into the bioremediation. It was very industrial, like you're just scraping soil off and sending it to a landfill. So not too great.
Yeah, I get that.
So for those that aren't familiar with Uruguayan agriculture, how does that differ, or what's the main staple farming type there?
Okay, so Uruguay, as you might know, it's a really small country. Like, we are smaller even than New Zealand, but maybe 90% of all our area is adequate for agriculture. And so we are a very agro-exporting country. 90% of that agricultural land is for beef and lamb production. And then we have like the other 10% of the land dedicated to agriculture and forestry, like extensive crops. Like, we have soybeans, we have wheat, we have corn, we have rice. We have dairy, pretty strong dairy also. But then, like the very strong and very widespread beef industry that has the special quality that it is mostly done on native grasses, which is something that's pretty unique in the world, to be able to have this very important industry for the country done over a native grassland biome, over an untouched biome in that sense. And we are having challenges in preserving that native grasslands. It used to be like 75% of the beef industry over native grasslands, and due to land use changes and the expanse of agriculture and forestry, we are losing this very special biome. But we're fighting to keep it.
That's pretty cool. Is it a government-led thing to try and protect that native grasslands, or is it coming from the people?
It's coming, right now it's coming from the people, in the sense that we don't have laws or regulations that actually protect it, but we do have very mindful ranchers and people that are conscious about what they're doing with their enterprises, and the stewards, of the grasslands, that are coming together and trying to do stuff right. But it's a battle we still need to.
So would that
fight.
Be one of the biggest challenges for the ranchers of Uruguay?
Yes, for sure. One of the challenges that we are facing is how can we preserve this, and how can we still be profitable and have these beef enterprises and be really competitive around the world, and have this great product that is done on a native biome that has all these ecosystemic services, and not have other industries like more agriculture or more forestry come in and take away that.
That's very interesting. So working with that native biome and those native grasslands, are you seeing that's quite drastically different in terms of soil microbes and soil makeup for the ranchers, and you can't apply things that maybe are done in improved pastures, say in New Zealand or in the US?
That's a great question. Well, we are seeing differences in how our soils are made up, and how they respond to management and stuff. Some characteristics that might be unique to this Pampas biome, or something like very bacterial soils, and the way that they behave. But like, definitely the important concepts, or the basic concepts about what biology needs, and how to manage for a healthy living soil. Like, you need to have living plants, you need to feed the soil with roots, you need to have good structure, you need to have microbes, you need to have minerals. That's basically the same everywhere in the world. So yes, we can definitely learn from what's going on in other biomes and other places, and maybe tweak it and adapt it, of course, to our context and our reality.
Well, I suppose that leads quite directly into what you're doing now. So do you want to tell us how you came to set up Sosei, if I've got that correct, and what you provide as a service to Uruguay, and what your expertise are in that area?
Okay, yeah. So Sosei, it's a word that comes from Japanese, and it's I guess it means it's supposed to mean I don't know Japanese, but it's supposed to mean something like revival or restoration or regeneration. And when I started out, I left behind the industry that I was working, and I decided to focus on the soil and stuff. And I was actually going to start working with a particular biostimulant and bring that to the market and stuff. But then that deal fell off. It was February 2020, and it was right before COVID came, and I was left with no job, no deal, and anything. So it was really a daunting time for me. And then COVID came, and I was like, okay, we need this time and to reconfigure, to rethink, reshape the direction of what I was going to do with my life. And yeah, that's how obviously, I wasn't going back to the industry. I had already made my commitment to go and work in soil and stuff. So yeah, that's how I had this quiet time during COVID to think about what I knew the problem and the opportunity was, that we need to help transition into more regenerative systems and more biological based systems in agriculture. And yeah, that's when I thought that what we didn't have here in Uruguay, at least, was the possibility to see how the soil was in terms of microbes of life. So the first thing that we did in Sosei was to set up a soil health lab. It's actually the first and still the only, since 2021, soil health lab in Uruguay. And yeah, we started measuring different indicators of soil life and starting to understand how microbes work and function in our soils. So yeah, right now we have a pretty good idea of what can and what cannot be expected in terms of yeah, soil health in different in agriculture, in ranching systems, and the like. And then of course that led us to start working with farmers and ranchers and producers in general, about, okay, so this is what where my soil is right now, and how do I manage it, what do I need to do in order to get it, to make it better, basically. So we started with a little bit of consulting, and yeah, sort of walking with them and trying to think about different programs that would help their management.
That's awesome. Are you seeing an increasing uptake from farmers wanting to understand their soil biology or microbiome?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. When we started out, we were like this crazy, what's that new stuff? No one is going to care about that. But yeah, 4 years later, it's really something. It's really, yeah, like getting a lot more attention, not just to say, but soil health in general. Farmers are starting to ask more and more about it. It's a topic that's coming up in more and more events. And so I'm really glad and grateful that I've been able to prepare, if you will, for this moment, and have something in Sosei that we can actually put out there and be useful.
Absolutely. And you've got the data from a local context as well to show what's happening over time. You've probably got a few trends, which is cool to be able to talk to with those
Yeah,
farmers that are interested.
yeah, for sure. And like, I always tell them that even though we don't do research per se, like we're not a researching company, we provide services, but like we learn a lot from our clients and from what we are looking at the different soils, and we are discovering, accidentally or not, but discovering like different behaviors related to different plants and different weeds and what that causes in the soil. And yeah, we have all this new information that we can also share with our clients and producers in general. So
That's
it's,
bloody exciting. Are you
yeah.
seeing an uptake around the regen movement in Uruguay, or would you guys be kind of lower input as an industry?
Well, yeah, well, we're definitely way behind in terms of adoption compared to Australia for sure, the States, New Zealand. Like it's something that's really starting right now. It's starting here in South America in general. But yeah, like the ranchers especially are a little more looking into this. It's for a couple of years now. Particularly, I think because the markets are also looking for grass-fed beef, and all that around the quality of grass-fed beef and stuff. And since we already have that platform naturally, it's like pretty easy for them to fine-tune what they're doing and do it regeneratively. And agriculture is a little. When I say agriculture, I mean cropping, because
Hmm.
in Spanish we have two different words, agricultura and ganadería. So when I say agriculture, I am talking about cropping particularly. Yeah, it has different challenges for sure, but people are starting to think about that a little skeptical. Like, can you really do this differently? I don't know if I will be able to have the same, I don't know, yields. It's all about yield, in cropping,
Hmm.
and so it's a little difficult, more difficult with them, but they are interested definitely in knowing about their soil health. That's the first point. And then, yeah, when it comes to, okay, what do I need to do to make it better? Well, that's a whole different conversation. But yeah, like the biostimulants and all this bio stuff that's coming up in the market is also getting a lot of attention, and people are starting to say, okay, this is the future. How do I use this? How does this fit into my system? So we try to work with that, to sort of try to meet them where they're at, and yeah, work with them in this transition.
That's cool. It's definitely, I think, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, everyone's kind of skeptical about the regen and whether they can achieve the same yields. So it's nothing different. With all these new biostimulants turning up, are you guys doing some work around testing those as well to see if they
Yeah.
actually are what they are?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. We're definitely working with different companies that are coming to us because they need to show, they need to show what their product is doing to the soil and to the plant. So yes, we definitely have different trials that set up. And actually, a really good thing that's going to happen next year is that we've won a grant to set up like a network of farmers and companies, and to share information about different biostimulants that are being used and trials that are being set up, and sort of try to build this network of collective knowledge around that.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's going to be the greatest way is learning from each other. Do you find, as a woman in agriculture who's not necessarily from a farm, do you find any issues with trying to convey your message or the knowledge that you do have?
For sure. Like being a woman in this space, you always feel that you need to show way more competence than men. Like you cannot miss a step. You need to know your stuff and know what you're saying, because you're going to be questioned a lot more, for sure. And more so, the fact that I don't come from a background in agronomy. Here in Uruguay, we are a very traditional country, and like agronomists like to talk to another agronomists, and they like it's a very like closed circle. So yes, being a woman and being not an agronomist in background has its challenges. But then I guess it also has, I don't know, I think people might be curious in a way of what's this stranger talking about? Like, what's this
Mm.
different way of looking at the problem or whatever? And I have to say I'm grateful because I am getting people to listen, and we are being invited to participate in projects and stuff. So
Wow. That'd be silly not to, knowing how extensive your knowledge is on the topic. Are you finding that curiosity is reaching those agronomists as well? They're starting to become interested too?
for sure, especially the younger ones. But I would say most of the agronomists and the people that are working in the field, they know something's up with all these changes in what we know about soil and soil life. So they all have this feeling that this is what is coming, this is the future, there's something that I'm missing, and they are curious. Sometimes they are overwhelmed, as I guess we all are, because there's so much we don't know, and there's so much we need to look at differently and learn how to do differently, that they do get overwhelmed, and they probably prefer to keep on with their, recipes and 1, 2, 3, and just put your head down and do what you know. But there is this like underground current that people know things are changing, and they need to start looking at all of this. And that's what we try to. That's precisely where we try to be as a company, and with the message that, yeah, like, we don't know everything, we're just scratching the surface about how to do this, but there is stuff that is known in the world, and there are examples, and there is a way to think about this and to go about this. It's not as hard as it seems. You might need a different skill set, probably, or mindset, but it's not as hard as it seems. So that's what we are trying to communicate.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's one of those things, when you scratch the surface, it can become overwhelming because you're never going to figure it all out. Like you said, it'll be a mindset that has to change to realize that you don't have to know all the answers. So when you've got a recipe, you can just always fall back on that. Whereas if you don't have the answers, it can make you feel like you're losing that power, I guess, in the relationship. But what we want to be doing is walking beside the farmer and figuring it out together, I think, which is a great role that you're playing.
Yeah, exactly. And also a huge thing that always comes up in these conversations is that, in terms of mindset, is that people and farmers like to think about either making a profit or being sustainable and taking care of the environment and the land. And it's either one or the other. And, we are at a point right now as a collective that we know that it's not one or the other. They're not opposed. You can't be profitable if you're not sustainable in the long term, because your land won't be able to provide for you, and you won't be sustainable. You cannot be like, let's save the planet, if you're not profitable, because you won't be able to eat, basically. So that's a very important conversation that I try to have with producers in general. Like, it's not one or the other. They're two things that exist together: profitability and sustainability. It's an and there's tension, in the sense that you need to decide, sometimes for profit, sometimes for the longer term sustainability. So there is going to be tension, but it's both of them. They're not opposed. And that's like one of the, I think, most important things that we need to shift in mindset.
I absolutely agree on that. There's a lot of thoughts around short-term profit. So how much money can I make this year? But that's actually not looking at your business over the 10-year forecast. And if we're looking at that profitability over the 10 years, actually doing things that are more sustainable, or regenerating your soils, or building up the natural capital in your farm, you will actually be more profitable in the long run. And you're not eroding that capital, and you're not going to require more inputs in the future, which are more costs, and costs keep going up. So it's probably the most fundamental conversation at the moment, that it isn't and, is they're not separate. And to achieve what we want to achieve, is they actually work in tandem.
Yeah, for sure. It's hard, like you said. We like to think on the short term, sort of similar as taking care of our own bodies and our own health. People are starting to pay more attention to what you need to do to keep your body healthy longer, and have a healthy life in general. And those decisions are going to change, like, in what you do in the short term, of what you're eating, what your habits are, etc.
Yeah, and I think what we are seeing at the moment is that health consumer is actually spreading, and it's becoming more of the population are wanting to understand where their food comes from. So there will be a drive from our actual end person to improve our nutrient density within our food. And those farmers doing that already will actually be the ones that stand to be more profitable and make more money from that process.
For sure.
So I think that's an exciting change that will happen over maybe the next 5-10 years in agriculture.
Yeah, for sure. I always say that, like, people don't think about nutrient density here at all, at
Mm-hmm.
least at the moment. And when we have this kind of conversations, I like to tell them, like, please remember this conversation in 5 years, in 10 years, when you start getting paid for not the quantity of grain that you're getting out of your field, but the quality of that, like
Yeah.
the nutrient density of that beef, of that grain, or whatever. I think it's going to happen for sure.
Oh, exactly. And if you start now, like there's no,
Yeah.
you're going to benefit down the track from it, which is pretty exciting. And I think it's the same with the real world over. It's not the farmers that aren't really aware of the nutrient density thing. It's maybe people who are working above them or in the health space that are
Yeah.
talking about it. It hasn't hit that education level, and it definitely hasn't hit the consumer yet either,
Yeah.
which is a shame.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's just education, and once people figure it out, that's when the changes start happening. Is there a common misconception within agriculture that you find in Uruguay that people would just are sticking to, even though you know it's fundamentally wrong?
Yeah, well, probably the most important one probably is what I told you earlier about, like, I need to be profitable and you're asking me to save the planet, and like, I can't do that. I need to make a profit. And yeah, it's not like that. I think that's a misconception. And the other one is probably that you cannot build soil. It takes millions and millions of years, and it does in a certain aspect of it, like the weathering of the minerals and etc., etc. But like, yeah, the misconception would be that, like, they are not considering the biological processes are really fast. So if you help, and they are not probably taking into consideration, like, the potential of what a human intervention would do to actually modulate biology and help it move forward and thrive. And that would take probably less time than they would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you in a grazing system around like the liquid carbon pathway, I don't think farmers understand that's actually such a quick process if you can manage it correctly. And you can have some really good outcomes for your business from that if you actually manage it in the correct way and build soil, build the capacity, and that also translates to hopefully more carrying capacity on a farm as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Do you find you're having any of those conversations with farmers there that they're aware of that process?
Well, yes, like I said, in the grazing space, in the rancher space, they are more aware of that, and there is, like, more and more interest in how to manage your grazing and your grasslands and get the system, like, pumped up, because there's also this idea. I'm not really sure that it's something that's actually going to be a thing or not, but people are thinking about, for example, carbon sequestration credits and all that, for grazers, and they think there is money there. So they, at least, they're starting to think about, like, their soil, in terms of, I can get more money out of my soil. That's probably one way to start thinking about this stuff. I would prefer that they would get engaged because they understand, like, the basis of why you need a functional soil for everything, regardless of carbon credits. But at least it's like an entryway, like, to get them to think about this.
Yeah, it's a carrot for them to chase.
Yeah.
Which hopefully will then lead them onto a journey of learning more and more about it. And then that becomes almost an ethos for them as a farmer.
Yeah, because, for example, one of the big conversations we are having with ranchers here is about, like we said, the nutrient density and the quality of the pastures. Because we are finding that there's a whole lot of potential that we can work in that area. There is a lot of room for improvement in that area with grazing and with different mineral programs and stuff. And it's something that has not been considered enough here. Yeah, like, I'm excited about that kind of work, getting these beautiful native grasses to be even more abundant and even more nutrient dense and even better for the cattle. and yeah, get this industry really growing in that healthy environment.
Yeah, I'd be fascinated to know what the nutrient density of the meat of the cows coming off that native grass is like. It could
Yeah,
potentially be better because it's in the natural
yeah,
ecosystem. I think that'd be some fascinating work to see what comes out of that.
yeah. Well, I think there is research coming out.
Mm-hmm.
There is research coming out about that. We are in Uruguay working a lot in that sense because it's like one of the country brands, like grass-fed meat in native grasslands, and with all this talk about eat less meat to save the planet and all this greenhouse stuff going on. And yes, like we are really moving to show that there are other ways to produce beef that have other benefits. So I know there is research. I don't know the results yet. I know they are promising results, but they haven't been published, I guess, yet.
Cool. Well, I look forward to hearing about them when they do get published. So
Yeah.
we're on this journey at the moment, which we call the Create program through Integrity Soils. How have you found the program so far? We're almost getting very close to the end of it.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's amazing how fast it went, really. And also how in such a short time, if you will, it's just 6 months maybe or a little
Yeah.
less, but it's such an intense program, and I would say transformative, at least for me personally. Not just because all of the information and knowledge that is shared, but also because like how all these different areas like soils, microbes, minerals, animal health, whatever, all of that, how it all like weaves together, and how we get to look at things from all these different angles and then understand like the whole look at the whole system. So that's like, I think it's really empowering to be able to think about something in that way. But also, like I said, transformative, I think in terms of mindset and in terms of you don't need to know everything. You don't need to have all the answers because there are no definite answers. But yes, embrace this mindset of curiosity and love the questions, not the answers, you know? And that for me has been like a gift because I love asking questions, I guess. and like knowing that with this framework and with this mindset of looking for the questions and trying to understand with your client, together with your client, how it all builds up into this puzzle. I think it's an amazing program and an amazing tool that we have, and we're really fortunate to be able to go out there in the world and share it.
Gee, that's I think that you can't beat that for a summary. I would agree with all of that. Just it's been incredibly transformative for me as well, and it's been it's really given me the confidence, I think, to be
Yeah,
myself, and that confidence around not having to know everything. I think I put a lot of
yeah,
pressure on myself in the past to have all the answers for the farmer at that time when I see them. So that's been a
yeah,
huge takeaway for me too.
yeah. And that, like, you don't need to have all the answers because definitely you don't, but you can still create value. You can still give something, and you can still build something or help or contribute, and that's really important because I think, yeah, we all want that, to be able to contribute and to support and feel that we are enough in that we have the tools.
Yeah. Do you think that's your biggest takeaway from the
Yeah,
program so
for
far?
sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
So for you, well, what do you think life looks like for you once we finish the Create program?
Well, I'm really excited about it. Like you said, I feel a lot more confident about my work, about what the process that's been happening in these past years, and that like the point in time where I'm at right now and what's happening, that everyone is starting to talk about soil health, and that I've had this opportunity to start looking at soils like 5 years ago, and now have this program and really take this work to the next level. Like Nicole Master said when we talked before enrolling in Create, when we were discussing this, and yeah, we talked about taking what I'm doing to the next level. I really feel that I will be able to do that. And something that I would like dream about is to be able to bring this program or this type of program, this kind of way of approach to agriculture into the Spanish and language and into Latin America. I think it would be an amazing contribution, and it would create a lot of synergy to what's going on here already.
That would
I don't know.
be super
Cross
powerful.
fingers.
Yeah, and I think if anyone can do it, it'd definitely be you, especially with your massive amount of knowledge on soils as well.
Thanks.
That'd be very cool. So, if someone wants to connect with you, what would be the best way to get hold of you, Made?
Well, I guess I have a LinkedIn, which is Magdalena Iturria. And then we have the Sosei LinkedIn and Instagram, which is in Instagram is Sosei SOSEI.UY. That's on Instagram, and I think LinkedIn is the same. I think those are the easiest. And then just my email or webpage in soseibioag.com.
I'll put some links to those below in the podcast
thanks.
for anyone. So I usually wrap up my podcast with kind of 4 quick fire questions for all my guests. The first one is, what's one thing that you would actually change about the whole agricultural industry?
Okay. Well, I would really like to see society as a whole share the risks and the responsibility that farmers are holding right now of producing food, producing it in a healthy way, producing it in a way that's regenerating the soil. So we are asking a whole lot of farmers and asking them as well to take care of their families and be profitable. And I would really like to see the whole of society sharing some of that responsibilities and rewarding them or helping them run this transition and the risks of transition, if you will.
Well, that's a pretty good one. I like that. Looking back at your younger self, what's one piece of advice you'd give?
I guess like what we were talking about a moment ago about trusting yourself and trusting your tools. Because, yeah, you don't need to know everything. You don't need to be, prepared for everything. But you do have your tools, and just go out there in the world and connect and trust those connections as well. And I think building connections is a big one.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. I always encourage young people when they reach out to me, especially uni students, to see how I've got to where I am and just say, don't be afraid of networking with people and reaching out.
Yeah.
Because everyone will be happy to have a conversation and share their knowledge with you as well. So connection is great. That's what makes us all as humans tick, I think, that community and connection between us all. So what's something that excites you at the moment? Well,
I guess the opportunities that are opening up especially in Latin America. I've had the chance to reconnect with people from all over the continent in the past months. And I feel that there's so much possibility here. We are one of the main producers of food for the world, and we have such amazing landscapes, and I don't know. I am really excited to be able to be in a place where I can support farmers and embrace this different way of doing agriculture and supporting stewards of the land, basically.
That is exciting. And I'm hoping one day that I can actually come visit you in Uruguay and have a look and see what it's like. It sounds like a really cool place.
Definitely welcome here. Definitely. Yeah.
And finally, what is a force of nature to you?
Well, you are a force of nature for sure, Conan. I always tell you that. I really think you are. So, but yeah, like for me, I would have to say what inspires me the most would be like resilience, and how nature is always able to find a way. And basically that life will always prevail. It will always find a way. And I think that's like, for me, it's one of the most inspiring aspects of nature, or forces of nature.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. And I haven't really thought about it in that way myself, so I really, really enjoy that. Thank you very much for your time today, Made. I've really enjoyed talking to you and sharing a bit more about yourself and what you do and what it's like farming in Uruguay. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me, Conan. It's been a pleasure.